everybody. Welcome to another exciting, fun-filled, expeditious episode of Radiorama. And today on the plate we have this rather small Metz brand console. I can actually pick this thing up myself, so it's pretty small. But it's Metz with AM and FM and shortwave and a record player. There's a little storage place here for your records. And I already took the back off. It's barely a console. This is basically a tabletop chassis just about. And I tried it out yesterday. It does work, sorta, but I'm not going to plug it up again. We've got a bunch of really old crappy capacitors. And all it takes is one of those to shorten a specific area, and then you could cause some damage, and I really don't want to do that. Unfortunately, it looks like it's got some pretty noticeable cabinet damage. Probably a combination of being in the sun, and I'm going to guess that either it got leaked on or house plants were sitting on top of it, but either way, this is all water damage. And it looks like the water damage extended to the front in several places. So as much as I really don't enjoy doing this, I'm going to have to completely take this apart, sand it down, refinish. The good news is that the electronics works, at least. But then the bad news is that it's got one of these Rex record players. I've not had as much good luck with these, and the record player itself is missing the center. I'm not a record player guy. The center spindly thing that goes down there. I think I might have one sitting in my stuff, or it could be down in the cabinet. A lot of times things will just fall underneath and get into the cabinet. Even when I picked it up, I don't hear anything rolling around. But that's neither here nor there. I can make that work. But in the meantime, everything's got to come apart. And so I'm going to take some photos so that I can remember exactly how the cabinet pieces go back together. I'm going to have to take these off. Looks like they're held in with little nails. Like literally everything's going to come out. I'm not going to refinish everything. I think maybe the sides are okay. Yeah, I don't know. This thing, the reason I wanted to restore it is I can tell when it's done it's going to be beautiful. But right now I don't know. It's just an old radio. It needs an overhaul job, and that's what this video is about. So let's get going. Well, here's about an hour in, and I realized that probably I needed to take the speakers out or they were just going to get hosed. So I took them out. And it wasn't easy because some of the panels holding them in were glued in with little glue blocks. So I had to pry those off and get those out. The finish came off almost immediately. In fact, I think this veneer seems like it's made out of some sort of pretty soft wood, and I'm not a wood expert. Unfortunately, there's a decent amount of deep staining on it. I'm not sure if I can get that out. That almost looks like it's ink. I don't know what that is, but so I'm just going over the whole thing, sanding it all down. I'm not going to sand, for example, this part. I'll probably need to mask that off to prevent me from damaging it. It's a good thing most of the surfaces here are flat, so I can sand most of it down with my orbital sander, and then I'll follow up with some light sandpaper. Here's the doors that I popped off. So I don't think this is going to be as bad as some of my other finishes where you have lots of curved surfaces to deal with and contend with, so we'll see. Well, this is about an hour and a half of sanding. I took it down to about a 400 grit, and I've learned a few things, and I'm not sure if this is something that's true or not, but I used to sand these down and I'd wipe it down with a kind of a damp rag, but all that did was it would cause the grain to raise back up again. And so now all I do is I'll kind of like wipe it off with a tack cloth, and I got my oh so powerful leaf blower. But I think this came with just a clear finish, but just to make sure what it's going to look like, I think that's going to look great. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a clear finish on it. The stuff I got actually has a little bit of a, I guess you could call it like a warm hue to it, so it'll warm it up a little bit. But yeah, I don't think it'd be wise to put a stain on this because I think it's supposed to have that nice, simplistic mid-century sort of minimal design going on. And if I put a heavy stain on it, that's kind of going to defeat it. All right, well, this is after 3 or 4 coats of a satin spray. I've decided that I'm not good at applying stuff with a brush or a rag. I've tried it. I'm just not good at refinishing things. So the top has a little bit more because people are going to put their keys and stuff on top of it, but the sides and the front, I wanted to keep it really almost flat looking because I think that's how this looked from the factory. I don't think it was shiny. And the interior, as well as this panel here, I didn't refinish. I masked it off, and then I also painted the doors. I gave the doors a little bit extra too because people are going to have their hands on it, so you don't want them to like wear through the finish. The sides definitely. Actually, I'm looking on this. I think I need to add one more coat, just this side, and then we'll call it good. Let me check out this other side too. I feel like I put a decent amount on there, so maybe I'm just gonna compare this side. Yeah, that's a little bit dry, so I think I'm gonna add one more coat on that, and then that'll be it. Then I'm gonna let this cure, and then what I'm gonna do is start working on the chassis. Since it's a lazy Sunday afternoon, I don't really feel like working on electronics quite yet. I'm going to clean the chassis up, and it's already pretty clean. I went out there and I took my leaf blower and put it on low, and it blew most of the dust off. So I'm going to go in there with a damp cloth. I'm not looking forward to working on this because you see they've soldered this board down with the tube sockets. So what I'm going to try to do is you clip the leads to your capacitors right at the ends, and then you use those leads to solder in your new capacitors. And then this electrolytic is also probably mounted in a pain in the butt area. What is it? 50, 50, 8, and 8. There's 4 capacitors in there. May be okay. Maybe I'll bring them up on the tester that I have here, capacitor tester. And if not, I'll have to replace them, which is not the end of the world. Big whoop-de-doo. But let me go put that last little bit of finish on that side of the radio. Alright, I spent a little quality time cleaning the chassis up. Later I'll come back through and oil and lubricate some of this stuff. And that's why I like to clean these up a little bit. You don't want to get crap in the, don't want to get debris in the oil when you come back. Then it'll just grind into the bearings. So I don't really want to replace that electrolytic, and I get a feeling it's probably okay. But to prove myself right, I'm going to bring it up on my Sprague Telemic. And it's already not that bad. Now what you can do, if these guys have been out of circuit for a while, even if you ran it for a few minutes, just let it cook for a little while. What it's going to do, it's going to reform the basically the aluminum oxide layers that are inside of the electrolytic. And it's okay for that needle to jump around a little bit. When you see it jumping around, that means it's doing its job. It's basically reforming. And then sometimes you can give it the leakage test to see what it's doing. And the leakage is not great right now, but you can see it's still like reforming. What you want to see is that getting closer and closer to zero. And sometimes on these old guys, it can take like 20-30 minutes. And to me, it's worth it because if these are good, then I'd rather not have to come up with whatever weird ass engineering I'm going to have to do to attach all 4 of these new electrolytics in that place. I'm not sure what the era of this is, but the fact that it's got paper caps in it makes me think it's at least from the 50s. So it'd be surprising if that was still a good capacitor, but I've seen stranger things. Some of the Mallorys from about the same era are also extremely good. Yeah, we're getting close. Once you start getting under that 100 mark on this thing, you're pretty much good to go. So that makes me think the electrolytics are probably okay, but whatever. I'm going to go off and do something else, like water my plants, then come back. Welcome to day 2 of working on the I was about to say Granco. That's about as far from Granco as possible. The Metz brand console, and yesterday I did in fact refinish it, as you saw. But when I came out this morning to see how the finish had settled overnight, it wasn't totally even looking if you looked at it just right in the light. And I want this to be, it's never going to be perfect, but I want it to be decent. So I put 2 more coats of satin finish on the top, and I put 2 more coats on the doors and 1 coat on the sides because they were looking a little bit dry. I don't want it to look like raw wood, but I definitely want it to look flat like this, no shine. But it needs to be protected because people are going to put their hands all over this. They're going to touch things. They're going to put their keys on top of it or whatnot. I want to prevent that from causing any damage. Now, the other thing that I didn't film that I did do was I got some grill cloth and cut out some blanks for the speaker coverings. And those will get glued into the front. And before I do that, what I need to do actually is lay the cabinet on its front. And I'm not going to lay it on the concrete because that would be stupid. Instead, I'm going to put it on some towels. And then after I do that, it's going to be time to start in earnest on working on the electronics on the chassis. And yesterday, I tested all of the capacitors that are inside of there, and those were okay. But what's not okay is all these paper caps. There's a bunch under here. There's a bunch on top of here, and there's some underneath. Those all need to get replaced if this is going to be put into any sort of meaningful usefulness. If someone's going to use this regularly, you can't run it off of those old capacitors, because all it takes is one of those to short or otherwise fail, and you're not going to have performance. You will have performance issues, or it won't work, period. So that's that. Let me tip the thing over to the front, and we'll glue those panels in. Well, here we go. I use wood glue just about for everything. Well, not everything, but for a lot of applications like this, which is in this case gluing the fabric in. I've got this whole front sitting on a towel so I don't scratch up the front. And let's put these in there and then let it dry for a little while and get to the chassis. Here's the underside, and there's not a ton to replace. There's these 2 paper capacitors, and then there's 2 here. I thought there was one up here, but again, if you look at it, it's got a paper label, but it's clear plastic. That one's okay. As is this one. It's a plastic capacitor. These guys should be replaced, these small electrolytics, because even though they're low voltage, if they short, they can cause issues. And there's also a few that are up top. And the way that you replace them is fairly straightforward. They have their values generally marked on the sides. Sometimes it's a little confusing because you'll see this one on some of these European radios will be expressed differently. This says comma 15. All that reads is 0.15 microfarads at 125 volts. And kind of the same way with this one where it has a comma 0.047. Well, comma 047 reads the same as 0.047 microfarads. And when you see these that are kind of this aluminum with clear plastic, those are okay. These are okay. You don't need to worry about those. Don't need to be worried about that. Those capacitors are going to be okay, along with these ceramic capacitors. Those are fine. You can leave those alone. The later you get into electronics, the more stable and solid a lot of the electronics starts to become. Chemistry, construction, all that stuff, capacitors, resistors, it just got better and better. And you get into this era, and it's no wonder that a lot of the radios just still simply work. They're not as old, for example, as some of the 30s and 40s sets, so they haven't had as much time to be on this planet for crap to go wrong. But again, as mentioned, the technology's gotten better, and I'm grateful for that. That's less work for me. So I'm going to finish up under here and then flip it over and do all the caps on the top. And then there's a bunch that are actually in the cabinet for the tone controls. And speaking of the cabinet, I did get the grill fabric installed. And I think it looks pretty nice. You can hardly see it, but it's just a little bit of a touch here. I wanted it to be a light fabric so it goes along with kind of the light blonde finish. So now that I've gotten all that crap done, let's go in here and start replacing capacitors. Alrighty, the underside is now done. Well, not quite. I'm going to clean out the pots from underneath while I'm here. You just want to look for openings if there is any, which there may or may not be. Sometimes it helps to get just a little bit into the shaft maybe. Sometimes it'll get down in there. Actually, I think there was a hole up here. Oh, it's hard to see that because it's really recessed back there. Yeah, there's an opening in the pot, right? Crap, there's no way to film it. You just have to trust me. It's there! Alright. That already feels a lot better. These are the tone controls. I don't really see any entrances to these, so I'll just have to flood them a little bit. I hope that some of it will just soak in there. It must have. That already feels a lot better. Again, maybe put a little bit up here. This cleaner from WD, I know it says WD-40 on it, but this contact cleaner really works well. And it doesn't leave any residue either, which is what you want. And it's a lot cheaper. And I mean, if I was made out of money, of course I'd buy Deoxit for everything, but I restore so many radios. I'm not made out of money. All right, so what we need to do too while we're under here is maybe see if I can get to the underside of some of the contacts here. I don't love to soak the coils in this stuff, so I don't. All right. Might be able to get it from up above as well, but all right, let me flip it up and I'll start working on the capacitors on the top side. Okay, it is test time. Replaced the capacitors up top. The only one I forgot to do is this one, but I'll get to that last. But I want to see if this still works because I'm not familiar with this chassis. I know some very difficult to get to parts on this, and I just want to make sure I didn't short anything. So I'm not going to immediately fire it up. I'm going to bring it up slowly, and I want to see how much it's going to draw. And I've got my meter here. Okay, it's obviously drawing something. 32 volts and a couple of watts, not bad. Okay. Go ahead and bring it up to maybe 50 volts. Okay. Doesn't seem like anything's blowing up or smoking. Winky, what's the matter? I got this stray cat that I feed, and I put food out for him. And for some reason, he doesn't think I put it out there. It's out there, Winky. All right, let's see. I'm not sure if it hooked up the speaker right. Doesn't really matter. It's not going to hurt it if it's not hooked up to a speaker for a little bit. All right, that's not bad at all. It's only 15 watts. I'll go ahead and bring it up the rest of the way. Winky, it's out there. What's the matter with him? All right. I might have to go see what he's up to. He seems like he's wanting me for something. All right. Ooh, that sounds like radio.
We lost $1 trillion last year with China. $1 trillion. So if you're not going to do business with
Oh, shut up.
Memorial Day weekend coming in just a couple of weeks.
I mean, I got my regular ID, but I don't got no real ID. I didn't know. I had to look it up on Google yesterday to make sure it was.
All right, that's good. Anyway, I want to make sure that he knows he's got food over there. All right, now that we got the thing working, what I did is I've been using a fine brush here to get some more dust out of it. Because what I want to do now is oil the little fine bearing surfaces in here. This is going to make it tune a lot more smoothly. when it's back in the cabinet. And you just want to get it anywhere that it might move. And make sure not to get it on the strings, because if you do that, you're going to be really sorry. And I've done it several times, so you don't want to make my mistake. Okay, there we go. And where else does stuff move? Maybe a little bit there. And then this guy over here. And you can see I'm just touching it, just barely touching it. Okay, where else is it hanging up? Looks like it goes through this here. I use these zoom spout oilers. I'm not sure why they call it that. It sounds like an outer space spacecraft, but anyway, it works really well on this stuff. Alright, so let me see if I can clean up this glass in the front here a little bit. Get whatever this is on here. It says 94. I'm assuming that was to a radio station or something. And I'm going to use some plastic polish on this because this isn't glass, this is plexiglass. And so plexiglass is obviously going to scratch, and so I need to get all the scratches out. Well, it appears, I didn't realize this until just now, that the indicator, the little pointer for AM, is missing. As in, I think it fell off, and I didn't realize it, which is very easy to do because it's hard to see through these things in the first place. The FM one is there, but the AM one is missing, so I'll need to take this off so I can get back there and attach a new one. And it could just be anything. It could be like a piece of wire, because again, all you're going to see is like a little, like, I can't even see where the, like, here's the FM one. Like, it's just that tiny little bar. I've probably got some of my parts somewhere. Easy set. Then let's see what will happen. Well, wouldn't you know, I had a piece of, this is why I save crap and why my garage is full of junk. So I found a piece of a dial indicator from a stereo that got trashed. And I think that'll fit. And I lined it up. So now it tunes properly. The other thing I did was I went ahead and took the plexiglass and I buffed it out. But I'm going to put it back on there immediately because some of the ink is looking like it could be a little bit flaky, and I really don't want to damage it, so I'm going to put it back on. Oh, what I did too is I polished the plastic keys. I got the ink off of it, so they're nice and shiny. So I'll reinstall that, and then I'm going to add, well, not add, this has a phono input, and so I'm going to run an additional auxiliary line so that in addition to the record player, the future owner could listen to whatever they want through a stereo connection. Okay, I ran an auxiliary input. This one only has one input source. It's for the record player. It's got one for tape, but it's hooked up to the same exact thing. It's the exact same switch. So before I put it back in there, I want to see how loud that is. As in, is it going to operate when this is not plugged in? Is it going to hum like crazy? We'll find out. Okie doke. So I got the audio running through there, and now I've got one of the original speakers hooked up, since I know I'm not going to blow it up. And I've got this Bluetooth running through it. It's working pretty well. Now here's the test. You can hear it if I absolutely crank the crap out of it. Like all the way up, you can barely hear it. Just a little bit. I mean, let me hook that up again, one-handed. This makes for awful video. All right, plug this back in. I really need to get some of those fancy, stupid camera things. There we go. Actually, maybe not. I don't know about that. That doesn't sound very good at all. Yeah, I was kind of worried about that. When they're sharing the same thing, like with tape, you can disconnect it, but here you can't disconnect it when it's on phono. Let me try one more thing. I'm going to plug this directly into the outlet because it's going through all this shit. Welcome to day 3 working on the Metz, and I got bad news, which is last night, before I decided to call it quits for the evening, I came out, well, basically I wanted to test fire this guy, and it worked fine for maybe a few minutes, and then the sound got distorted.
Anything inside the card? Right now, just going to take your nickel cap. You can personalize it.
So I don't know what that's all about, but if it happened post recap, then the first thing I'm going to do is actually test all the tubes, and luckily this has tube layout on the back, and if you have a shorted tube, that can cause some problems. So I guess I'll just get to testing these guys. Unfortunately, when I was cleaning the tubes, the ink came right off on some of the tubes, but I did put them back where they're supposed to belong. So let me get at my tube tester. I'm hoping there's a tube that's got a short in it. Hoping, because that would be a very simple fix, because otherwise something is pulling down the audio on this and it ain't good. Oh, we're off to a great start. I'm going to decided to test EF86. No data. I have no way of testing that tube, so I guess I'll have to move on to the next one. Hopefully I'll be able to test most of these. That sucks. Well, EABC80 seems to have either a partial... Ooh. Man, it is not happy. It's angry. That's interesting. So what happened is, on cold start, well, obviously, it didn't... When it was warming up, it was blipping on the shorts, but now that's as shorted as a tube can get, and that EABC80 does an awful lot of things, because it's got 3, it is a triode, it might even more than that, it has looks like 4 different sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, and diode number 1 is out. I'm going to test the rest, but there's no way that tube should be in that set. That is shorting hard on one of the diode sections, and that would fuck up a lot of things. Oh, I'm trying not to curse on these because the person that donated this might be watching. I'm sorry. I was born to a sailor. My dad liked to cuss when I was a kid, but whatever. Oh, if only life were that simple. It still sounds like crap, so there's something else going on. So I'll resume with the rest of the tube testing and see if I find anything else. Well, there were no more shorted tubes, but, you know, just for giggles, I decided to start testing some of my power resistors. I've had problems with this particular brand and style of wire wound resistor where they tend to corrode open. And we've got this 2 watt, 2000 ohm resistor that has gone open. So I'm guessing that has something to do with the juice delivery system. And it is not happy, so I need to replace that guy. Well, got the new resistor installed. And now that I think about it a little bit, this does sort of make sense. Because when I was doing my initial diagnostics after the set was distorted sounding, I tested B+, and it was a little high in one section. So I think that resistor not being there probably was definitely messing with B+ to a nasty degree and causing some distortion. Now, I could be wrong. I've so far found 2 very obvious problems, and the first obvious problem didn't solve the problem.
20 years ago.
hard to tell without having a... Fuck, that still sounds bad. Now, let me run audio through it just to make sure it's not because I'm missing an antenna, but this is really aggravating. Nope, it still sounds like crap. Oh, that's really aggravating. Back to the drawing board. Yep, sounds like crap. I even replaced the 6BQ5 tubes temporarily just to see if that was it, because for whatever reason my tester will test a lot of 6BQ5s or EL84s equivalent as shorted even when they're not. So I got some ones from the museum that are known tested good. I think it's time to flip it over, see if there's any other things that could be happening here. Well, I've been piddle farting around here and I was measuring pin voltages off of my output tubes. I saw that that was not connecting, so I need to reconnect that. I don't know. I have low confidence in myself right now. Oh, here is a major problem, which is even though I replaced this resistor and this one tested good, I'm getting absolutely no B plus or any voltage on that side of this resistor. So something in between here and there is causing a short. So I just need to look at the schematic and figure out what's going on. Well, I feel like a genuine idiot, and I'm not saying this is the problem, because so far all the problems I've found have not solved the problem, but I forgot to test EF85, the tube, and I'm not sure why I forgot to do that, but it's like lighting up my shorts like a damned Christmas tree, and it doesn't even show any emissions at all. That tube is deader than a doornail. And I don't know what EF85 does. I think it's one of reception tubes. If you've got shorts like that, then that's going to cause problems up and down the chain. So let me see if I have another one of these tubes sitting around somewhere. Okay, so what I did is it said, first of all, to hit gas 1 until you have 1 division, which I'm assuming is 10. And then after you establish that, then hit gas 1, gas 2. You can see I'm moving from 0 to 10. So you know what the problem is? I've spent, seriously, the last probably 3 hours just going over this over and over and over and over again, like trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with it. And so my friend Rajesh was like, maybe check out EF86, measure the pins on it. And so I did, and when I pulled it out, something really caught my eye. Just, you miss it if you look at it in the wrong way. I can't even film it, there's a really tiny crack in this, in the glass envelope. And so if I put it in here and test for gas, well, to plug the machine in. Well, anyway, it's gassy. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, well, I asked my friend Rajesh again. I was like, is that going to be a problem? He's like, yo, yes. I kind of figured. So I happen to have a weak EF86 tube in my stock that I wasn't aware of. And that seems to be working pretty well. Seems to be working pretty well. Yay! I feel so much better. I spent like way too much time scratching my head like, what did I do wrong? What a difference a day makes. So I'm gonna have to admit that this played for about 20 or 30 minutes and then it went right back to sounding awful. And at this point, I'm not giving up, but I think I need to take a break from it. I'm probably going to bring it with me to the museum and see if some of the other techs can kind of help me figure out what's going on with it. But it's distorted, and I don't understand why. I think there's a weird, insidious short somewhere. And I'm wondering if maybe it's the volume control, one of the other controls, or maybe the switch contacts, even though I've thoroughly cleaned the absolute snot out of them. It's not a B+ problem. It's not an RF problem, it's an audio problem. So I'm going to let this just sit here until Saturday. In the meantime, I'm going to work on a regular radio because we have radio day coming up in July and we have so many radios that need to be repaired. I found the problem.
1.7 kilo ohms.
So what's happening is that
What?
that resistor was getting hot.
No, it's actually 1.7 kilo ohms now. It used to be 250 ohms.
So a factor of 4. So Raj, he wired up these resistors.
Which you should never do.
Put that in there like that. Oh, well,
Yes.
that's a bad idea.
Perseverance and their grace. Thank you for doing it. How about you, Brooke? Anything?
Yes, please. The Souls in Purgatory really kind of.
Uh-oh. Souls in Purgatory.
That's bad.
Yeah.
So from 1K now. Yeah.
So that resistor was doing different resistance things with power in it. We've spent all day on this. Thank you, Rajesh, for helping me. Jesus. So it's supposed to be completely flat?
It's supposed to stay flat, yeah, but it's
It ain't flat, is it?
I don't know. I'm just trying to see what the heck is going on with that. So weird resistor which drifts. It's weird resistor which is drifting in its value. Like we sure it means it's 400 after it's 800 and
It's just like that. Somebody anonymously sending money something. God works through people, and He works in.
So that's a sign of a bad resistor.
most likely, yeah.
The Lord looks at the heart.
So there's a lot
Major League Baseball on ESPN Radio has been presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive can't protect
Yeah, it works fine.
auto, boat, motorcycle.
Okay, well, let me translate what happened today. So me and Rajesh looked at this all day long, poked and prodded, and what it wound up being is there was a resistor that is connected to the plate of the EL84, and then the other side of the resistor goes to chassis ground. And the one that was in it was being affected by either temperature, voltage, or both. It was starting out at about 190 to 200 ohms and going all the way up to 2,000 ohms. And that essentially was kind of shutting down the signal. So I've brought it home and I've got it connected to at least 3 speakers. So I wanted to load it down. And that is audio input. It sounds all right. I can't tell with these not being in the cabinet if it's doesn't help that I'm playing really old music, monorail music. Anyway, I think that's all I want to do for it today. We spent most of the day before we were able to pinpoint it down to that one resistor. Sometimes these things can make a real humbling experience, and feels very humbled to have not found that problem myself. So Rajesh, if you're watching, thank you so much for helping me. I can't get through some of these things without some of the help of the volunteers at the museum. So sometimes when I get stuck, I'll bring it in there. But luckily, I feel like by doing this over the years, more and more often I can usually figure it out. But every once in a while, I get really stumped. So it's great when you have friends that can help you. All right, well, never mind. I was about to say I didn't get much done yesterday. But after we resolved the problem, I was a little bit worn out and didn't do much on it last night. So here is the resistor that was there. We're going to hold on to it. We're going to do some analysis later. But what I was experiencing last night or yesterday when I brought this home was I felt like maybe the signal was just a little bit too hot. Maybe needs to be tamped down a little bit. And here's the other thing. We never found an actual schematic for this. There's several different versions of this model, 604. This one is a 604- I can't remember, it's 8 or 9. And there was a schematic for one of those, but it had a completely different configuration as far as the tubes. It wasn't at all similar. So we could not read this value because it's burnt up, and I can see two black stripes and a lightish stripe. And right now we have 180 ohm resistor in there, and I think I'm going to put 200 and something in there to see if that, again, like makes it a little bit less hot. It was almost there, but before I do that, I think what I'm going to do is desolder one side and then solder this in. The other thing that could be happening is that I don't have it back in the cabinet, and the cabinet has a sort of a tone control mechanism in it, and that could be that could affect the way this sounds too. But before I put it back in, I'm going to try this, and then it's going to be time to install the speakers, the panels and everything, and then I want to put this chassis back in and see how it sounds. And if that is solved, then it'll be time to move over to the record player. My hope was, and we'll see, my hope was to get this completed today. I'm actually going on vacation later next week, and I want to have this out of the way before I do that. Don't ask me why, but it'd be nice having this to be back together again and out of my garage so I can make room for other things, because our museum is getting ready to have its annual auction, and we need to have 50 or 60 sets done before then, and this is not one of those. This is one of our publicly offered pieces that will show up probably on one of our websites, or who knows. I'm not the one that makes the decisions about where these go afterwards. Well, I think the value that we landed on is probably closer to what we want. Actually, it sounds halfway decent, and again, I'm not really going to know how it sounds until I get it back into the cabinet, but like I can't, like if I increase the resistance, actually the sound quality goes down a little bit. So that's what I had in there originally. And if I disconnect that, and I'm not saying you should do this, by the way, this is not exactly by the book electronics. Yeah, that sounds way more broken down versus if I'm not sure if you're going to be able to tell it listening to your crappy cell phones or whatever you're watching this on, but I can tell. Yep, okay, I'm just going to leave it as it is then. What I'm going to do next is take the cabinet out and install everything, and then I'm going to put the chassis back in, and then I can start fine-tuning things easier. Alright, so I got those capacitors replaced. That one was actually a plastic cap, and I'm not too worried about that. There's hardly any voltage on that whatsoever. The way that these came from the factory is that these were glued and nailed in, and the glue must have not been that great. So to save time, I went ahead and bolted these up, and I brought my soldering iron out so I can connect these up before I bolt them in. And then I'll put the side speakers in, and then I'm going to loosely put the chassis in. What I also want to do while I've got this out here is there is one joint right here that's coming a little bit loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pry this up a little bit and put a little glue in it, and then tape it down so that it'll cure, because it's kind of warm out here, so it should happen pretty quickly. But I want to do that now before I get too involved with putting it back together again. Okay, well, I am reinstalling the big speakers. I want to show you guys something before I put them back in there. I have never seen this before. You ever seen that? It's like an offset cone. And I'm guessing the way they did that, the reason they did that is because these are on the sides and they're partially obscured because this hole's not big enough for the speaker. And I'm not sure why they decided to do this, but it means that this part of the speaker will still be exposed to center. So I guess they figured maybe it would help with the sound traveling. I don't know. Weird. Good luck finding a replacement. I'm glad these are okay. Oh, this kills my back. That's what happens when you get older. Anyway, I've got all the speakers kind of buttoned back up in here and wired up. And what I did is I glued this stuff back in the way it was. And I'm just going to have to let it sit here and cure for a little bit before I set it up right. Either that or I can see if I can find some little nails to nail it in, but I can wait. It's fine. I think what I'm going to do now is work on the record player and get that situated before I think about putting the chassis back in, because it needs to be done anyway. the glue needs to set, etc., etc. It's pretty early in the day, so let's get to that record player. Well, as mentioned, since the glue is setting, I'm going to work on record player. I do not know if the record player actually works or not, but usually, bare minimum, I need to figure out how to, well, actually I don't need to figure out anything. There's a C-clip here. I want to take the platter off and see what the condition of the idler wheel is. Hopefully it's not all solidified and hardened up. A lot of times they aren't, but they will sometimes need a little bit of resuscitation. So let me take this C-clip off and hopefully it won't fly across the room. Let's see what it looks like underneath. I haven't worked on these in a little while, but the good news is it seems like the rubber on the idler pulley is okay. We've got some belts here and they seem like miraculously they're still pretty springy and rubbery. But everything needs to be loosened up, so I'm going to take this off, the belts off, then flip it underneath, clean and lubricate everything. Something very old school about this record player. This looks like almost like a 40s style record player. The mechanism doesn't look all that much to write home about. There's hardly anything going on underneath compared to a voice and music changer. And it looks like the rubber mounts that their motor is sitting on are in good shape too. So probably this was kept, well, because it was closed up in the cabinet, that helped. You want to keep this stuff kind of cool and keep it out of the light, because that will disintegrate rubber pretty quickly. So let me take all that crap off there and we'll start lubing up everything so it'll work easier. First thing to do is free up the motor. It's not quite wanting to turn. I put some oil in the bearings. Sometimes you just gotta work them a little bit until they start. Okay. I don't need anything, thank you. Alright. Once you get it going, you just want to let it go for a while. This might take a while, as in maybe you don't want to watch this. This is what you spend a lot of time, I spend a lot of times doing on record players, just getting stuff that's been sitting around for decades. Start moving again. So I might be here a while. Oh, there she goes. You can't even see it spin now, it's going so fast, but be patient. I'm going to let that just do its thing for a while. What I did is I've let it run, and then I put a little carburetor cleaner down there to kind of help work in and dissolve some of the old grease. And then I'll flush it again and I'll add some new oil. And that way, sometimes a lot of people will oil these up and they'll be, oh, it works great. And then when it cools down again, it seizes up. So sometimes it's really important to get all that old grease out of there. And let's see, does it turn off? Yes, it does. This is the switch here. When you put the arm down, it turns off, and you can see it turned off. And there it goes again. It starts to turn immediately. Unfortunately, the tree that went here that would drop the records is gone. So I've only got this, and that will be basically it. It'll be a manual play record player, which is fine. I mean, I wish I had the stuff to make it change, but I don't, and I'm not gonna try to find it either, because it's probably gonna cost a fortune if I can find it at all. So it'll just have to be what it is, a manual record player. Honestly, a lot of the people that are around today, that's all they know. A lot of people have no clue that there was such a thing as a record changer, where you could stack tons and tons of records on top and let them play one after another. Super convenient. It must have been really nice to have a dinner party or whatever, and just not worry about the records and let them play all night long. But this ain't going to have that feature. It's going to be a one-player record player, one-at-a-time record player.
That's what beans don't call red. Always get mad at me. I ain't mad at you. I'll be ready tomorrow night. I'll be ready. Beans
grabbed Cornbread by the toe. Bean said, Cornbread, let me go. Cornbread said, I'll lay you low. I'm gonna fight you so and so. Meet me on the corner. Meet me on the corner, you mighty day. That's what Bean said, Cornbread. You're so bad, you always want to fight.
That's sounding pretty good to me. I think, I don't know, it feels like maybe I could dial it in just a little bit, so I might fuss with it a little bit later. But I have to remember, there are not gigantic speakers in this thing. Like, they're pretty small. But what I'm going to do is put back the panels, because this is going to ultimately be a sealed cabinet, and that's going to make a big difference as far as the overall sound quality. And I need to put the covers that are ripped off back on. I didn't realize they were held in with tiny little nails. So when I popped them off, I heard them crack. I was like, crap. But that's okay. They're just cosmetic, and I can glue them back on. And lesson learned, take them off from the inside next time. Meanwhile, the record player's giving me a little bit of a problem. I'm not sure what's going on with the motor, but I've decided to take a break on it. I think one or two things needs to happen. I need to take this probably apart and clean out the bearing surfaces, because it's just not enough torque. And it's not able to drive the mechanism at all. If it can't do it in manual mode, that means it's not going to do it, period. It's just going to be a dead record player. The only other thing I can think of is got a starter cap here and a resistor. The only thing I can figure is if this resistor has anything to do with potentially this being a 50 hertz motor and needing to compensate for making it capable of working on 60 hertz. I don't know. I can't remember. I've tried to do that kind of thing before with record players that have gotten into that are European, and I've tried adding gigantic resistors, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work very well. So I'm not sure if that's what's going on here, but it could be.
What is this madness that makes my motor?
Okay, good news. Seems like it's turning off and on pretty well now. It seems like it takes a while for it to get going. And the only thing that I can figure, I could be wrong here. I'm not sure if you guys can see this. Crap, of course you can't see it. I really don't want to show it without unhooking the electric power for just a second. Hold on a second. So that's got to be a starter cap, and that thing's massive, 0.4 microfarads. It's a plastic capacitor, so I think it's probably okay. But I'm just guessing maybe they were doing a crude conversion from 50 to 60 hertz somehow, and like that is what does it. Like, why would you have a massive power resistor coming off of that? That's my guess anyway. You've got this lead. Where's it go? Yeah, it's going through that capacitor and that resistor, definitely. I'm not an engineer. One of you engineers will be like, I know exactly why that's there, and explain it perfectly. All right, folks. Kind of getting towards the end of this restoration. The record player works fine. I'm just keeping it covered because it's sunny outside. I don't want the record to get warped. Alright, so there's a little bit back here that was a... Wait a minute. Why does that light turn on when... I don't understand. I thought that was supposed to do the opposite of that. Like when you open it up, it's supposed to... Oh wait, never mind, it's on. It's me smoking crack or something, I'm sorry. Alright, so what I'm going to do is let that glue dry back here, because this was coming apart, and I want to make sure it's structurally sound, because that back will also be a part of the structural integrity of that cabinet, as Norm Abrams says. So I found all these slide rules in the garbage at the museum, and they make great things for doing things like that. So anyway, I'm gonna let that dry and let this keep on playing. Oh yeah, you know what? The other thing is that capacitor, that totally was the trick. Because what happens is now when you turn it on, it kind of fires itself on, like it jump starts the motor. So that was my problem all along.
But I can't see a thing in the sky.
Anyway, I brought this back to the museum and I was about to put it up and I realized there was a box. I was cleaning out my work area over there and I was like, what's this in this box? And all the stuff that was missing for the record player is here. Plus I found the original instructions and I even found this note from the previous owner. Metz Television Radio Corporation, Firth, Bavarian, West Germany. Dear sir, I have a Metz 604 equipment with a Perpetuum Urbis Rex turntable with a 50 cycle pulley. I wish to change this to a 60 cycle adapter. Huh, that's interesting. So someone knew what they were doing back then. Interesting. Alright folks, this was a long drawn out episode and I hope that maybe you put up with my blabbering. But thanks so much. And until the next time radio comes across my workbench, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.